Time is now 6 o'clock, and at this time, we will call this meeting to order. Being the November meeting of the Dawson County Planning Commission. We'll begin with an invocation from Tim Bennett, if you would, please, Tim.
Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today. We thank you for your love, mercy, and grace. Lord, we thank you that you're still God and in control of all things in a time when it seems like there's such chaos in the world. We just pray for peace and unity, God, during Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays coming up. We just pray for this meeting tonight, Lord, that God, that you would help us, Lord, and direct us, God, and give us wisdom for what's best for both the county and those who are involved. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This time we'll have a roll call. Ms. Harmony, when you are ready. The record will show that we have 4 present, which is more than a quorum. We're missing Neil Hornsey tonight. He has some family issues going on. Under announcements, there will be a planning commission meeting on December the 15th at 6 o'clock, same location. Gentlemen, the minutes that you have before you tonight, assume you've had opportunity to look those over. Is there any amendments that need to be made? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Moving second to approve. All in favor of approving the minutes? The minutes are approved. The agenda that's presented by staff tonight, is there any amendments to it? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented by staff?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Moving second, all in favor? And the motion is carried 4-0. If you're here tonight to speak either in favor or in opposition of any application, and you have given more than $250 to any local official campaign, then there's a form that you will need to fill out, which Harmony has up here at the desk. We will begin with old business, presentation of ZA 20-08. Fox Creek Properties Incorporated is requesting to rezone tax map parcel 112-109, 104-065, 112-019, 112-013, 113-057, 002, 112-018 from RA, RPC, RCB, RPCD, COI to mixed-use village for the purpose of developing single-family, multifamily, retail, commercial, office, hotel, and light industrial uses. George 400 in Campground Road. Someone here to speak for Fox Creek Properties. If you would, please come forward. Write your name and address on the piece of paper that's there on the podium.
Okay.
If you would, please give us your presentation of why you're asking to rezone these properties.
I actually was not prepared to do that because I was under the impression that presentation was being made by staff tonight and wasn't going to be given an opportunity to speak, is what I was told. So I'm a little confused. So
there would not be a public hearing, but you would still be able to present your changes, but there would not be a public
okay,
hearing.
well, I think we handed you a revised packet tonight. So based on our first initial meeting that we were here, we did some revisions, increasing buffers along the existing residential. Here we've increased these. I think we highlighted that in your packet. We've increased the buffers up, I think more than doubled them along the existing residential areas. We've reduced the density down to 1.78 units per acre. We've also reduced the multifamily section. We've allowed, let's see, the light industrial area now, which is up in here, will accommodate 350 square feet, 50,000 square feet. We've added a secondary exit out through here so that there's just not one main road out. We could got a, from the fire department, they requested we have a secondary exit through there. And I think that was the kind of the highlight of the changes that we've made. This is the Pod D is going to be more of a age targeted product now. We see a lot of examples in our handout of both single story and two-story product in there. We'd be going in here. And I think that's about a summary of all the changes that we made from the original presentation.
We do have our certainly more information than we had initially. The first time this project was presented, you had a long list of stipulations that you were looking to adhere to or willing to adhere to. Are all those still the same as well?
I believe they are correct, yes, sir.
So what I have different is this one-page zoning memorandum. Was that what you?
That's just basically what I
Yes.
summarized from, yes, sir.
So this is in addition to the other stipulations that you had proposed the first time.
Previously proposed, yes, sir.
We still don't have a timeline on any commercial stuff though, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. Any other questions to the applicant from the board?
I know the commercial aspect was a big component of this for live, work, play. Where's the commercial laid to go?
It's up here in pod A, just this little piece right here. That's yeah, right there. Commercial restaurants right here.
And that's the only commercial aspect you have.
Yes, sir. You bet.
Is that, I'm sorry.
How big is the light industrial area? I know you said, but how many acres is that roughly now? I know there was some,
I think it's approximately 30 acres. now.
okay,
Yeah, and it accommodates about 350,000 square feet.
okay.
Is the commercial reduced since the last time? Seems like it's smaller than the last
I
time.
think it has been because we reduced the overall density, so we had to, I believe that's correct. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Any other questions from the board? Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
At this time, I would normally ask for all in favor to speak and for all opposed to speak. Let me go ahead and clarify. The public hearing for this particular zoning request was given 2 months ago, over 2 months ago, at which time we offered for both sides to speak. There will be a second public hearing. We always have one for the planning board as well as one for the board of commissioners. The second public hearing for this particular zoning request, as well as the other old business, will be heard at the board of commissioners meeting, which will be on December 17th. So at this time, we will close it to the board for discussion. Gentlemen?
No, being a mixed-use development, it just seems like the commercial aspect of it is awful small.
And it still goes back to the whole thing, the commercial aspect being the last thing that gets done or never gets done.
Right. That's, that's the thing that's concerning when you see developments like this come in. They're being proposed as a mixed-use live, work, play community, and that's what we're being sold. And If it doesn't play out that way, you know, development is development, and it is certainly is part of it. But as concerning is that the commercial aspect is
Both reduced and no timeline.
it almost wish you put stipulation that the commercial would be built first.
You could always put a stipulation, but certainly that,
And then if that doesn't work, then the rest of it, you know, has to come back to be rezoned.
But if not first, at least at some point in time during the construction of it, there needs to be some commercial component that is completed to offset the development. You know what I'm saying? So instead of trying to come all at one time in the beginning. Because I'm sure they're depending on the development of it, people moving in there to actually help support the commercial side.
Maybe just put a stipulation that you could only develop a certain pod first, and then the other pods could not be developed until the commercial aspect is opened up. I don't know how we can do that.
certainly the choice of whoever gets to make the motion.
Or at least the light industrial part, because it's a lot bigger than the commercial highway business. And, you know, I know it's only 30 acres, but that's still a lot of warehouse space that will be opened up by it. And overall, as far as the density goes, I think it's a pretty low density compared to what it could be.
Right.
We could have somebody in here wanting to do a bunch of multifamily and have 6 units to the acre.
Right.
But I definitely agree if we could put in a timeline on the commercial and tie the light industrial to that as well.
What kind of timeline would we want to put on? Would,
As long as you can see development going in conjunction, that would be pleasing to me, certainly. Certainly be no build out of one before there's some build out of the other, but as long as they were tied together.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could start, put in a stipulation to where it, like you said, has to start, run concurrently with each other. They have to start, you know, maybe at the same time with at least the commercial or the light industrial going at the same time as the first pod for the residential.
What if there's just a simple math, once they reach a third of residential, then a third of the light industrial and a third of the commercial has to be done, and then continue that on out. Instead of trying to come up with timelines.
Yeah.
I think it'd be easier just to do it percentage wise. What do you think?
If I may suggest, why don't we just work with the applicant before we get to the Board of Commissioners as far as a timeline that, you know, everyone's comfortable to, because you're right, the commercial in these mixed use villages, the commercial aspect is extremely important, but it's also supported by the residential portion in a lot of aspects. So as we work through the different pods, as they have it broken out, I'll try to work with the applicant on some type of timeline to make sure that the commercial gets developed along with the residential. And something before, just the stipulation is to work with staff and prior to the going before the Board of Commissioners for their approval.
Because I think you could nearly start the light industrial. I don't think it's going to depend as much on the residential side. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it seems to me that it would be more independent anyway from the residential. From what I've heard, people in the community with, you know, wanting to build warehouse type space. So
So just to be clear, as your chairman tonight, I'm going to abstain, so I don't lock us at 2-2, regardless of what we do. But is there a motion?
a motion to approve the stipulation they'll work with staff to come up with a timeline for some type of concurrent development and commercial and light industrial to work together on a timeline to be presented to the Board of Commissioners, that it works concurrently.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Move in a second. All in favor? Motion is carried 3-0 with one abstention. This rezone will be, we are recommending approval as a board. And this rezone will be held before the Board of Commissioners at the December 17th Board of Commissioners meeting directly following the 4 p.m. work session. ZA 20-18, the Pacific Group is requesting the rezone tax map parcel 106-053 and 106-052 from RS Residential Suburban to RS3 Residential Suburban 3 for the purpose of developing 183 residential lot subdivision Dawson Forest Road. Is someone here for the Pacific Group? If you would, please come forward. Write your name and address on the piece of paper that's on the podium.
All right.
Additionally, for my sake, please state your name.
Ray Cunliffe with Pacific Group.
And if you would, please present your reason for a rezoning request.
Okay, thank you. Harmony, do you have a copy of the updated site plan that we can put on display? While she's putting that up, I'll begin. As mentioned, we're here again tonight after last month the vote was tabled for the proposed Oaks at Dawson residential community. I won't repeat every word we presented last month, but I do want to highlight some of the key discussion points we discussed last month. As currently zoned, the 61.15 acres, no problem. The 61.15 acres that make up the bulk of the community, which is parcel 106-053, could permit 61 home sites and be developed in a conservation design. Thus, the same lot size could be developed and homes could be built with 0 conditions of zoning. I want to repeat that. We could currently build that big parcel with 61 homes with 0 conditions. So additionally, all 61 of those lots would have their only access through Country Crossings to Grizzle Road. This would add 61 additional homeowners who could use the existing amenities of Country Crossings. Should the county find our rezoning request worthy of approval, we are committing to conditions that would, 1, not allow any traffic through Country Crossings, 2, guarantee no additional homes would have access to the amenities of Country Crossings, including their pool and tennis courts, and 3, provide minimum architectural conditions similar to those that were approved at the Woods at Dawson next door. Our application included proposed conditions that capped the total number of lots to 183. We required this be designed as a conservation subdivision and include a 100-foot exterior undisturbed buffer as shown on Exhibit C of our application. We also included 13 architectural conditions that would ensure quality and maintaining consistency with the conditions similar to those that were imposed at the Woods at Dawson. And we agreed to work with the Georgia Native Plant Society. After feedback from the residents, surrounding residents and county stakeholders, we agreed to 5 additional conditions to our proposal. 1, we committed to a reduction in the number of lots down to 153. or 2.1 units per acre. This would put us below the density at the Woods of Dawson next door, which is currently at 2.2 units per acre. 2, we committed to an amenity area with a pool, cabana, and playground. 3, we committed to increasing our undisturbed buffer to 150 feet to all properties to the north, west, and south of the community, with the only allowed deviations from this 150 feet, which is shown on Exhibit C. We committed to providing a fence along the shared property line with Country Crossings per the request of the members of Country Crossings. And we committed to a requirement that at the purchase of each building permit, each home shall be subject to the then current total impact fee plus an additional $500. All 5 of these are reflected in the updated lists of proposed zoning conditions that were sent since our last hearing. Since you received these updated conditions, we've continued to work on the outstanding concerns that were brought up at last month's hearing. And I'd now like to touch on those. Harmony, would you be able to scroll down a little bit to show the entrance? Is there an updated one since then, Harmony, that you have? I think it was emailed maybe last week or the week before. Would have been emailed for me, Ray Cunliffe. As she's pulling that up, first we engaged our traffic engineer, Mark Akampora, to update the traffic impact study to include the analysis of the roundabout at Lumpkin Campground and Dawson Forest, and the analysis of the two future roundabouts at Highway 9 and Dawson Forest. We provided that updated report to you and staff. The report concluded that the future analysis shows continue acceptable operations on all approaches to the 3 studied intersections. No off-site mitigation is necessitated by this proposed subdivision. Secondly, the DRI came back last week. The summary of staff review concluded the following. 1, there were no regional concerns regarding utilities. 2, assuming compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local regulations, there are no regional concerns regarding environmental protection. However, the county and developer are strongly encouraged to ensure best environmental practices that they be encouraged regarding stormwater management, which we'll work with staff to do. 3, there's no indication of sidewalk or trails on the development, which is, if that's the case, the inclusion of such was highly recommended in the DRI. 4, assuming the concerns raised here are considered and addressed in the county's satisfaction, there are no regional concerns regarding traffic or transportation infrastructure. So to follow up on those, we will have sidewalks throughout the community as required by the ordinance, and we're happy to include trails in the amenity area, between the amenity area and the creek. Between the DRI summary and our updated traffic impact study, we hope you agree that the Dawson Forest Road entrance concerns have been addressed. Still.
Yeah, sorry, I was unable to pull it up. I apologize.
Okay.
It's in the packet.
Okay, so you have the additional or the latest site plan, and this is the third point. We have worked to satisfy concerns of some of the property owners that are adjacent to us, or adjacent to the entrance road on Dawson Forest. We've successfully contracted with another 1-acre parcel since the last hearing so that we can provide a 65-foot undisturbed buffer to the west of the proposed entrance for our entrance road. The plan that was up earlier was the previous plan that showed no buffer between the entrance road and the adjacent property. Again, we've now acquired an additional, or have under contract another acre of property so that we can provide a 65-foot buffer between the proposed entrance road and the neighbor to the west. Initially, we had no buffer here, and again, we're now committed to a 65-foot undisturbed buffer. As for the neighbors who live on Paddock's Place, we're providing a 150-foot undisturbed buffer between their property line and the lots on our property. This is 3 times the required buffer. We respect their concern that they moved here to Dawson to have more land, and our 150-foot proposed buffer helps protect their privacy more than they could have relied on by the county ordinance. We were happy to walk the property with these neighbors and have made clear we'll do it at their convenience. In summary, we urge you to recommend approval for the request to rezone these 70.15 acres because 1, our willingness to work with our neighbors, 2, the merits of the proposal within the suburban residential land use category, 3, support from many of the residents of Country Crossings, and 4, our willingness to include 5 further concessions that we discussed last month, and now additionally 5 because of the results of our updated traffic impact study and the DRI and our adjustments to accommodate our neighbors along the proposed entrance road. We'd like to reserve the rest of our time to respond to any public comments.
There won't be
although there
public
won't be any.
comments.
Thank you. Or to answer any questions you may have.
Certainly. Okay, so now, does the Pacific Group own this land?
It's under contract.
Okay, so Pacific Group itself does not own any of the land, neither the Country Crossings land or the land that's contracted for the traditional 1 acre at this
Correct.
point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you stated the 65-foot additional buffer. That's to the neighbor that was just to the west of you, or earlier, that's where you're going to put in your driveway, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
So you slid your driveway to the east, I'm assuming.
that's correct. Yeah.
How does it line up with the area across from you?
So across from us, I think there are 2 residential duplexes. So it, it's not a entrance to I think there's a grocery store further to the east.
Okay.
So it's,
So it will not line up at all with the grocery store then?
no, because it's not in front of it.
All right. And certainly understand that you're working with your neighbors, especially the Country Crossings neighbors, in order to keep this development out, or to keep them from using, or the new tenants from using their development.
Correct.
As it stands right now, the acreage would be up to 70.15, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And you'd started with 60.15 initially, is that right?
Yeah. So the property that's
The old Country
currently,
Crossings.
yeah, it's
is
61.15 acres. Yeah.
Okay.
And we,
And now the additional would bring you up to 70.15.
Yeah.
And you're currently looking for 153 lots.
correct. Yeah.
All right. Any further questions from the board to the applicant?
Is your development, as far as you'll be required to do whatever Dawson County decides to do as far as the roadway improvements in front of the site?
Yeah. Yeah. We have to work with staff to get a land disturbance permit, which will make all the improvements meet county standards.
Think or
Any questions, Emery?
Mm-mm.
Thank you.
You guys.
Just, once again, this is old business. It has been heard by the Board of Commissioners. There was, by the Planning Board. There's been a public hearing on this one already as well. And you will have your second public hearing on December 17th in front of the Board of Commissioners, regardless of what this board here tonight decides. That being said, at this time, we'll close it to the board for discussion. Gentlemen, any discussion on a piece of property that's already allowed to have 61 houses on it, jumping up to 153 houses with some concessions to allow for 150 foot of buffer on certain areas, 65 foot on certain areas, and some amenities? As far as the recommendation of the board.
My initial thoughts on it when it first come up was that's a little bit too far from 400 for me for RS3.
Yes, sir.
But they've cut it down it's close to, it's just barely above what RS2 would be. So that helps a little bit on the density, but it's still pretty dense to be that far out, especially since we don't have the future land use plans not really been updated for RS2 and RS3. Like it's hard to, when we start saying where it goes, that's going to be where it's at. We're setting a precedent there. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
So how far away from 400 are you willing to let it go?
That's
Essentially.
the question. And I don't know if anybody, I don't know what the right answer is to that right now. And that's the thing that kind of worries me about approving it with this many that far out, is if we can't pull it back after that.
True.
I understand the point of, protecting those that are already using the amenities and not increasing their volume of people. But I'm like with you, it's a pretty good ways out there, I feel like.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement.
Is there a motion?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Moving a second to deny. All in favor of denial? Motion is carried 3-0 with one abstention. The recommendation is to deny. This will be heard by the Board of Commissioners on December the 17th. Directly following the 4 p.m. work session. So the public hearing as well as this presentation will be on December 17th in front of the Board of Commissioners. Under new business, application for rezoning, ZA 20-22, Jim King, OBO. Piedmont Residential is requesting to rezone tax map parcel 114-033-005 from RA Residential Agriculture to RMF Residential Multifamily for the purpose of developing 145 semi-detached residential lot subdivision, Dawson Forest Road East. Is someone here to speak for Jim King or Piedmont Residential? If you would, Mr. King, please come forward and write your name and address on a piece of paper there in front of you. Additionally, for my sake, would you please state your name?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim King, reside at 416 Overlook Circle, Dawsonville, Georgia. Here tonight representing the applicant on this rezoning. This is the parcel that lies directly behind the Walmart along Dawson Forest. The overall parcel, this is a portion of this parcel. The overall parcel runs from the back of Walmart all the way to Highway 53, all that frontage along Dawson Forest Road, across the creek and back up the hill to to Highway 53. And then it goes west as far as the Farmington Apartments, which are the adjacent neighbor there. It is directly across the street from the Dawson Apartments that were approved and are currently under construction. There's 300 apartment units across the Dawson Forest from this. The property is designated as commercial on the future land use plan. However, staff has said that it is in alignment with the land use plan because of the uses that go along with the commercial along that 400 corridor and the overlay district. As you know, the overlay district is designated for mixed use along that 400 corridor, variety of uses, commercial, residential, office, industrial. This makes a good, with all the other commercial, the retail that we have along 400, this piece is really not suitable for additional big box retail. Now it is, the owner of the property is reserving the frontage along both Dawson Forest and Highway 53 for future commercial. My client is purchasing the interior part of the site. And what we hope to do is build eventually it will be a mixed use type development because you'll have the residential apartment on the centrally located area and then the commercial around the perimeter. It will be connected by sidewalks, so will be sidewalks within the development. The majority of the homes in here are going to be rear entry garage. This was something that came up in another rezoning that we worked on last year. There was a big desire, I guess, from the neighborhoods and the commission at that point to do something that has that traditional appeal to it, street appeal to it, where you have the front porches on the front of the house and the garages are in the rear. And that's why we chose to do this. The developers agreed to do rear entry where we could, just to give it that street appeal. The RMF zoning, unfortunately, is the only zoning category that we could fit into with the product that they want to build. It did not fit within any of the other residential categories. So we're stuck again back with the RMF. And they are connected as RMF requires the semi-detached. It allows for semi-detached, which is connected by a wall or fence in between the units. Of course, there would be a gate through there for emergency access. That's really the primary interest is going to be off of Dawson Forest. It will line up with the apartments across the street, the entrance to the apartments across the street. There will be a future connection through the commercial parcels along 53 to go out. And we know we have to have emergency access, so we will provide emergency access until that commercial is developed.
What portion are you looking, is the people you're representing, what portion of this?
The residential portion, 30.48 acres. There's approximately a 300-foot depth along 53 and Dawson Forest,
Okay.
which 300 foot is kind of that'll take most of your retailers today. It's kind of a rule of thumb.
The 300-foot depth lies along both Dawson Forest and 53 then?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. What about I'm assuming you're hopefully looking to take care of the environmental sensitivity of this area, the proximity to Lake Lanier, the wetlands that are right there in front of you,
Yes, sir.
any runoff that you're going to have, detention ponds?
Yes, sir. There's one detention pond. It's right would be the western portion of the site where it borders that creek that runs through, where the lift station is and that
Yes.
creek that runs through there.
Yes.
The detention pond is just upstream from that. And it would be water quality, as we're familiar with, the Department of Natural Resources has some very stringent water quality requirements for the state that were adopted, about 6 or 8 years ago.
As far as building plans, any designs that we can look at? See.
Trying to remember if we submitted some with the package. If you don't have it in your package, I guess we didn't. We do have a few typical plans. Elevations is all we have. We don't have the actual building plans, but
So what price point are we looking at here?
I'm not sure. It's around the 2,000 square foot range. So
Any other questions to the applicant?
No traffic study done yet, as far as
we have not.
something like that.
Questions, Mr. Mahoney? Thanks,
You
sir.
kind of hit, you hit most of the questions.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? If you would, please come forward. Write your name and address on the piece of paper provided there on the podium.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Dunsel. I live at 805 Lula Garrett Road in Dawsonville. I'd like to first start off thanking and acknowledging and appreciating your role in terms of helping promote our public health and safety and the general welfare of Dawson County citizens in accordance with your charter. During the evaluation process of these proposals, you've been informed in writing repeatedly as to the deficiencies, the severe deficiencies that we have in terms of medical, fire, and law enforcement services. These inadequacies directly threaten the health and safety of every Dawson citizen. In this morning's meeting on the upcoming March 2021 SPLOST vote, SPLOST 7 vote, the commissioners reiterated their position that our health and safety was their highest priority. They pointed out in detail their planned spending of the proposed new tax money will go directly to meeting some of the documented current deficiencies in these services, upon which we've come to depend, and certainly our visitors as well. Unfortunately, however, these corrective measures, if in fact they are eventually voted into place, will only begin to make up for a deficit we now suffer. First, these critical needs exist now, but SPLOST money cannot be spent before it is collected, a process that will take years. As a result, today's needs won't be met until years from now. Second, it's common knowledge that housing and apartment occupants consume far more government services than their taxes cover. Residential construction projects now underway are rapidly increasing these critical needs. So the gap between what citizens need and what Dawson can provide, even by 2024 to 2027, is guaranteed to expand. Third, SPLOST money cannot be used to pay staff salaries and benefits, which must come out of the general fund. But as your professionals have warned, staff is the critical shortage. This demonstrates that SPLOST is not a solution. As a result, SPLOST money used to purchase more vehicles, equipment, and facilities does not alleviate property tax increases, it guarantees them. Fourth, the SPLOST is projected to raise $60 million over 6 years. This projection, however, does not account for the hyperbolically increasing use of internet retail sales. People who buy online will pay their county sales tax, not ours. And their trip to Dawson to buy from our stores is rendered unnecessary. Particularly in an age that threatens future lockdowns, this projection could be highly inflated. Although there is no data to prove visitors pay 80% of our SPLOST, face the fact that a large percentage of that 80%, upwards of $48 million, might never come in. Fifth, and most important, there is no guarantee, particularly based on the defeat of the T-SPLOST, that voters will approve SPLOST 7. There are only two ways to fill this health and safety hole we now find ourselves in. Tax ourselves in larger and large amounts, always trying to fill an ever-expanding pit, or stop growing these critical needs. What this means is that now is the time that you must step up and fulfill your mandate. We are therefore petitioning you for three things. First, we ask that you table this rezoning request and place a moratorium. Secondly, a moratorium on all similar construction projects going forward until these critical needs are met. And third of all, I'm asking that you petition, you reverse and rescind the approval that you've given to ZA 2008. The reason for this is because it is unrivaled in its scope and its impacts. There's been major changes that have been made since the last public hearing on this. And also as a result of the fact that there are no legal stipulations requiring, no legal contractual requirements on implementing the conceptual plans. In fact, many of the meetings at the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners has been to grant piecemeal and individual exemptions or waivers from stipulations. So these stipulations carry very little weight over the long term in many instances. If, however, you proceed with approvals today and going forward without first meeting these critical safety needs, we can only conclude this to be a dereliction of duty. We trust that you instead will fulfill the Commission Chair Thurman's charge. He reiterated this morning that Dawson government will always act to first serve the best interests of our current citizens. Thank you.
Anyone else speak in opposition? Please come forward. Write your name and address on a piece of paper on the
I'm
podium.
on the board.
Please.
I get a little bit old. I can't get the commissioners to fix the intercom system. Nobody can hear back there at the back. I'm Hugh Stowers. I live at 800 Hugh Stowers Road, Dawsonville. A little bit of history on this intersection. You can thank the Gainesville DOT for being so kind to Dawson County. I think they closed the dam on Buford Dam for Lake Lanier 62, 3, somewhere along there. Thompson Park Road is 053. So they left that suicide intersection there since then. So thank Gainesville DOT. It took me 10 years to get the turn lane changed from David Turner's up to Hugh Stowers Road because some guy from Florida tried to kill 3 of my grandchildren and my daughter-in-law. Rear-ended them at 70 miles an hour, waiting to turn left on Hugh Stowers Road. Finally, the commissioners comes in after a few get killed up there at Hayes Long Station, you know, and they eliminate the darn thing because of suicide. But if you go to South County on 53 and Hall County, they've all got turning lanes where people can get off the road and get out of the way. So thank the DOT. Next of all, I have known fact. The Board of Commissioners has gone and begged money from the Department of Developers. They're at 53 and 400 Dawson Forest Road. I've heard $140,000 and $170,000. This is probably half of the cost of a roundabout. I heard nothing from the developer, anything to help about the taxpayers, anything to improve Dawson Forest with all these cars and people they're gonna put on the road, anything about this intersection to help out the taxpayers. It's all for the developer and their money. And y'all are walking right in their footsteps. So we're headed down a dead end street and we're going to wind up like I know personally of at least 4 senior citizens in Forsyth County had to move into their children because they could not afford to pay the property taxes. So y'all just keep dancing to the beat of your drum and the commissioners keep dancing to the beat of their drum and we keep going down the toilet. We don't need any more residential. Okay, we need infrastructure. We need jobs, decent jobs. We don't need prolonged poverty things like they put over on 400 because nobody can afford a car payment, much less a mortgage payment working over at one of those places on 400. But everybody thinks job. It's not a job. It's prolonged poverty. So get your ducks together. You're doing a great job for what I think it might be doing. And I think you'd like to do better if your hands weren't tied. So good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Towers. Anyone else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper on the podium.
My name's Sabrina Meady. I've been living in Dawsonville since 2005. I lived on right behind where the Kroger was at one point, and I moved over to 53 and lived on Gober Hill till the continuous flow highway continuously flowed by. And growth is all great and everything, but I'm an Atlanta born and raised girl. Downtown Atlanta, in fact, went to Midtown schools. As soon as I had children, I moved. Wanted suburbs. Chambly, Dunwoody, North Druid Hills, Doraville. Went to Gwinnett County at one point. They are all unlivable. It's untangible. You're creating 369 on Dawson Forest alone. I finally bought a house off Dawson Forest, of all places, in rural Dawson Forest on Goodson Road. Let's see, we got A.C. Smith, 9, 2 roundabouts going on each end. You want to put in 400 roughly new homes right by the school. May not affect the traffic, which I highly and sincerely doubt at 2 cars per home, but you're also going to affect the schools. We're back to police, traffic emergency. And may I add that I am your only licensed in-home daycare center in the county of Dawsonville. I have to worry about whether I'll get services because Y'all are too scattered and have too many things going on. Apartment complex, there's not going to be any way for anybody to get anywhere. There's one road in, one road out, and there's a construction truck on every corner of every road. There's going to be a roundabout down from AC Smith on Hopewell now. They're going to divert that traffic onto Goodson when that happens. And where's all that traffic go? Dawson Forest. So now we put in 2 more subdivisions. And then, like you were saying earlier, it's getting too far up the road. You're not staying at the corridor. We're creeping in. Please, I moved a family of 4 that all own and pay taxes in Dawsonville. And this isn't what we moved here for. We like to hope that you could think, what will your children and your grandchildren, is this where you want to raise your grandchildren and for them to live, to be so congested that going to the grocery store is now a half an hour ordeal? Because that's 369. I lived off of Hopewell at one point too, right there. And I started coming to Dawsonville because it was easier than going to Cumming. So now, do I need to go to Jasper so that I've got 2 neighbors that have lived in their homes that they built in the 1980s, right next to me. Both want to leave because the taxes are raising. They don't have children in schools. They still have to pay that. And yet we're going to ask them things like, let's go ahead and help pay for people's roads inside of a subdivision who pay HOAs. There's just too much request and demand coming of the citizens who work generally hard and who came here, and even replants who want country. We didn't come here to be, I don't want to live in Buford Highway. I did. I moved. Please consider the longevity of your own families as well. And lastly, just remember that just because we can doesn't mean we should. Thank you.
If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper there on the podium.
Ken Ruffner, Paddock Place. I spoke twice before you gentlemen at the last meeting, and I thought we'd have another opportunity to speak tonight regarding 2018. But speaking in general terms, I just want to reiterate what I spoke about last meeting, was all of this high density development going on around us. And when I say us, probably within a 5-10 mile radius, I listed off a long list last time I was here, different zoning requests and rezoning requests at the last meeting, which I won't go through that again. But, you know, my main concern is, like the last lady who spoke, and this gentleman here, is I want to see the quality of life maintained here. I don't want to see us overrun with all this high density housing and, you know, these, you know, I see all these little shoebox houses. They're just packed in there one after another. And I do appreciate the concessions that the gentleman made with regards to the development they want to build behind me, but I still think the density's too high. You look at all these developments and that's all they are, is high density. It's, you know, apartments, townhomes, attached homes, you know, it's just too much high density housing, and it's just going to destroy the quality of life that we have here if it's left unchecked. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper there at the podium.
Good evening. My name is Karen Brennan, and I live at 140 Eastview Drive. I second what everyone has said in general. I think we're all smart to know that when someone owns a big piece of property, they're not going to let it sit idle. So they're going to have to do something. So growth, I think, is inevitable, but I charge you as a citizen and a taxpayer with thoughtful growth, and growth that is consistent with the future land use plan, and growth that is consistent with our motto where quality of life matters, because I came from Gwinnett. I came here specifically to retire, to enjoy the outdoor curb appeal of Lake Lanier, a small town. I've never cared so much about where I've lived. I've never come to these meetings before anywhere else because I love it here. And I know that growth's going to happen, but I do think we need to look at things like the big project, the Fox Creek, no mention of traffic impact studies. Do you know what it's like to see here on weekends, the traffic on 400 South? You got to go on Lumpkin Campground because it's bumper to bumper just to go down from Harmony Church. That intersection where you're going to do that development on a Sunday, it's bumper to bumper. It takes 20 minutes to get to the Kroger. So I just would ask that you consider the safety. Previous meetings, they've talked about the ability to have, like if there's a fire, there's like only one fire that can be worked on at a time. We don't have ladder trucks for some of these higher buildings. But again, I just want to be down for the record that, and not only that, there's a Facebook poll, and quality of life matters. People are upset. The majority of the people don't want to see traffic congestion. They don't want to see increased crimes, increased urban Atlanta sprawl, delayed emergency service response, and higher taxes. Those were the biggest. There was about 8 canned responses, and people can't all come here. They don't have the luxury to come here to be heard, but go out there and look on the internet. Go out and listen to people. People are complaining about it. There's got to be something out there that could be better than what we're hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Anyone else speak in opposition?
My name is John Livingstone. I live on Highway 9, south of the square. I've got a couple of questions on this gentleman's development. He said he was going to develop the residential first. Is that correct?
What,
Okay.
if
And then
you would keep your comments to the board.
okay. And then we're going to build commercial later.
Actually, this that he's presenting is, he's a presenter for somebody
Right,
else.
right.
And he has told us that the current owner is going to keep 300 foot on the Dawson Forest side and on the 53 side so that they can use it for commercial later.
All right. My
That's what
question
they
is the people that are going to buy these supposedly lovely little houses, are they going to be informed that they're soon going to be back and looking at the back of Walmart and people's dumpsters and other things like that?
Well, they're going to be right behind a Walmart to start with.
I
mean,
understand
they
that,
right
but-
there on the back side of Walmart.
I get that,
They're
but
going to be 140. If this goes through, there'll be 145 of them crowded in on 30 acres.
Yep.
And they're sitting right behind Walmart.
I understand that.
If it goes through, they ought to have a pretty good idea that they're going to be looking at the front of one too. But nonetheless, I see where you're coming from.
No, I mean, that's just my question. Having Walmart on one side is one thing. Being boxed in
Walmart on
by,
two sides is different.
by 3 different sides is something totally different that, you know, just people, you move in, they get excited about a new house. They don't always think about what's coming next. So that may be something that needs to be addressed. Hey, you know, we're going to build these nice little houses, but we're fixing to surround you by commercial development. So just a question. Thank you.
Thank you much. Anyone else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper there on the podium.
My name's Joanne Sheridan. I live on Diane Circle, which is off of War Hill Park Road, which is right off of 53. The next intersection, other than a little subdivision, is Dawson Forest Road. And I work up here at Rick Rack. So it used to take me to 8.8 miles, and it used to take me about 11 to 12 minutes to get to work. And then 453 intersection was created, and it added 6 to 8 minutes to my commute, just because it only allows 3 cars or 3 vehicles to cross 400 at that time. Okay, now we have this huge apartment complex on 53 and Dawson Forest, which is going to open next month. I don't know how to find out if they have an entrance exit on 53. I don't know how to find that out. Or if they plan to stop sign or a red light, stoplight. And if they haven't planned one at Dawson Forest and 53, disaster is going to happen. But you're going to add another probably 10 minutes to my drive for 8 miles up here. I don't know if you travel down that way, but if you are on 53 going home from here past 400 and there's an accident at Dawson Forest, you're not going anywhere for a while. Now, if my house were to catch on fire during that accident, there's no way the fire department can get there. It's a 2-lane road, and it is packed if there's an accident at Dawson Forest or at War Hill. You're not going anywhere. They can't get around the cars. So before you build anything else in that area, you really need to do something about the roads so that emergency services can get through, so that the accidents don't cause a 45-minute to an hour wait, just traffic, sitting in traffic, because there's nowhere to go. You can't turn around. You just stop. And I don't want my house to burn down. So please don't approve anything without really intensive traffic studies. How many people it's going to affect, because how else are they going to go anywhere? If your entrance and exit is on Dawson Forest, you're going to 53 or to 400. That's it. Please consider the traffic studies before approving anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. Does anyone else speak in opposition to the application? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on a piece of paper.
Hi, I'm India Hawkins, and we haven't really discussed what we're here for, what I'm here for exactly, but I live at 2411 on Highway 9, and there's a kudzu right across the street from my house, 66 acres, and they're talking about putting 141 homes right across the street from my house, where I come out of my driveway every day, and I'm going to see 141 homes, cookie cutter homes. And then every day I come home, I'm going to have to look at the same thing. Look at perimeter in Highway 9. I mean, look at those houses. That's not a pretty sight to me. I love Highway 9. I think it's a beautiful road. But I think if you continue to start putting all these cookie cutter homes that are not even over 200,000, and just making Highway 9 look like crap. I mean, to me, that's not a beautiful sight. And that's why I moved to Dawsonville, because it was beautiful. And, you know, I've got horses, and it's like, I've got 8.5 acres. So it's like you going in and putting 18 homes on my 8.5 acres, plus my home. You know, to me, if you're going to put something, if you have to put something across the street from my house, make it less homes. 141 homes on 66 acres. It's going to be like, and then not only that, it's a curve in that road. All the water from Highway 9 comes off of Highway 9 into my valley, down my pasture, into the creek side. So I'm going to be getting all that water pollution too on top of that. And then it's like I got one entrance right up the street from my house, and I'll have one right down the street. So they're talking 2 entrances, and I'm right in between them.
But Ms. Hawkins, you realize we're not discussing that tonight because it's not up for.
Well, I didn't
discussion
realize
tonight, right?
that. I thought this was what
No.
we were going to talk about tonight.
This is Dawson Forest Road right behind Walmart. That's what we're looking at currently.
Okay, well,
What
I
your
didn't know
discussion?
that.
Yeah.
I've never been to one of these things, but I just
That's why
know.
I just wanted to clarify.
But-
Right now, we're not looking at a subdivision crossroad from your house currently.
Okay, I understand that.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to voice my opinion on it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to ZA 20-22? I see you raise your hand, Mr. King. I assume you want a rebuttal. If you would, please come back to the podium. You have a few minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's been some very good comments made this evening. And I do respect the citizens' their feeling that all these subdivisions coming up, creating traffic and everything on our roads. We've heard, I know one person was down talking about the property off of Goodson, which is down there, Highway 9 in Dawson Forest. Of course, the lady just spoke talking about up at 9 near the city. Others off of Eastview, which is down Nix Bridge Road. Most of these, if you'll look at our land use plan, which was created by a citizens group, and it's been recreated or it's been adjusted and looked at year after year for the last 10, 15 years. And it's come up with the same theme, something that started a long time ago. And that is concentrate the growth around 400 where your infrastructure is. Leave, like the land use plan shows, pretty much everything north of the Etowah River is rural. And that's a beautiful part of Dawson County. Not that this part isn't too, but even the land down on Nix Bridge Road near Eastview, that's designated for rural. So let's leave those areas. Let's follow the land use plan and leave those. Let's concentrate the growth where along 400 corridor. The other thing we have along the 400 corridor is that the overlay district, which this property is included in, which requires it to have 80% brick or stacked stone on the front. So it automatically gives you that nicer looking building versus what she's talking about at Perimeter and 9. It gives you a much higher class neighborhood, but we've already got an apartment complex on both sides of this project, and these are going to be single family detached or semi-detached, but for all practical purposes, they're detached homes, individually owned, fee simple owned. And it's on 53 in Dawson Forest. It's on our major transportation corridors where we already have infrastructure and everything. That's what the land use plan vision for the county is: concentrate the growth in these areas and leave the other areas alone. You got to preserve something. And you're going to have growth no matter what you do. So let's concentrate it where in these growth areas. The other thing is, regarding the firefighters and the emergency personnel, I do know that that is an issue with the county, and I believe the county commissioners just addressed that with their budget for next year. But again, that's really not a land use issue. That's personnel, that's operations, that's what the county commissioners are there for, to make those decisions and figure out how to raise the money for that. As far as ambulances and fire trucks, we do have impact fees. The county has an impact fee ordinance, which, for every home, I believe it's about $4,000. How much is it, Jameson?
Roughly $2,500.
$2,500. That each home has to pay for when it's built. That goes towards infrastructure, in addition to the SPLOST, of course. But the operations do come out of the general budget. But again, that's what we elect our commissioners for.
Thank you, Mr. King.
All right.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. King.
Oh, certainly, Mr. King.
Mr. King, as far as, one of the impact fees and this and the other, I understand that. The thing that's concerning is we have a roundabout that's going to go at this intersection.
Yes, sir.
And there'll be infrastructure that'll go around that roundabout to make sure it operates properly.
Yes, sir.
Would your developer be interested in putting any monies or assistance toward that infrastructure that goes around that roundabout? There's no traffic study to determine. I firmly believe that Georgia DOT is building this roundabout at future standard, at some future, 20, 30 year out or 20 year out
Sure. Yes.
volume. But the infrastructure that goes around it, how your site will lay, how your intersections and your access points will lay with that roundabout and how that will function.
Our entrance is further down Dawson Forest Road and it lines with the apartment. So it's really not, I don't know how it functions with that roundabout. Now, where the roundabout will go in will affect some of the commercial property that's being left over because that's the first 300 feet. So it will affect some of that property. And I don't know, I haven't talked to my client about that. And he would also have to talk to the owner, I guess.
Okay.
But we'll certainly entertain anything you suggest.
Okay. Any other questions to the applicant? Thank you, Mr. King. This time we'll close the board for discussion. Gentlemen?
I know, like you was talking about the roundabout, they're already in the design stage, I believe, for that. So I think when they do the traffic study, that'll have to be included. I think that's one thing that Public Works wanted, was that to be included in the future roundabout, included in their traffic study. And I do agree that there needs to be, if we do decide to approve it, a stipulation with them putting some money towards that roundabout. I know those apartments did.
Yeah, and I think they're, the thing that's concerning, I guess, is the fact we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how the out parcels will connect to the to the residential portion of this, and are we tying without some type of planned access points and planned development? Because it is, you got your residential and you have your out parcels, but there's no plan on how they coordinate with each other, and there's no plan on how that will coordinate with a future major intersection.
Right.
And without that, I don't really like approving something you can't put your finger.
Because there is a big question about that commercial, that 300 foot, the access to, is that what you're talking about?
It's concerning because I know we developed a piece of property in Alpharetta where it's because of the access point and the property not being deep enough, the internal operation of the internal street system or parking lot system does not work with the road system. And we had accident after accident there, and a lot of restricted movements had to come out of that. That was imposed on the development itself. And basically it's not having enough, if we would have had information up front, we wouldn't have approved that property the way we had approved it.
Right.
And so that's concerning, is the fact that we don't see how this will operate with the road system with a future major intersection. A roundabout's operationally, it is its own headaches. And for a good distance before the roundabout and on the approach to the roundabout and leaving the roundabout, that all has to work together. And so that's my concern.
So essentially, you're saying you'd like to see the whole thing
I'd like
done
to
as
see the
a
whole thing.
mixed-use development type thing, so that we're not looking at 300 foot of commercial property and each of them dumping out on Dawson Forest Road. Perhaps they could turn around, much like the problem.
Because you can't deny access. The problem
Right,
is you
right,
cannot deny a person's access, and then this development may tie their access point will not work with the future intersections or the future intersection.
There's a lot of accidents happening there already. I mean, there was 3 in a week, just a couple weeks ago right there. I mean, personally, I think until a roundabout goes in there, I agree with Mr. King's statement about we need to keep the growth at 400, but I don't know that anything else needs to be put on that Dawson Forest Road that's going to be coming out there on 53 until that's actually addressed by the state. And
Or we see a plan that shows how it will be addressed.
because it's dangerous right there. Especially if you're trying to come from the lake, trying to turn out. It's crazy. Do we know a time frame at all from the state on that?
No, state, it's all in discussion. But as far as-
Yeah.
So with all that being stated, is there a motion?
Motion to deny.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Is there a motion?
All right, I'll change it. Motion to I'd like to, how do we get it to where we see that this goes forward with a planned development and not piecemeal?
You could make a motion to approve with the stipulation that it'll have to be done as a mixed-use development, or that they'll have to work in conjunction with the current owners to present a detailed presentation. That could be a possibility.
I mean, for me, you already have the development that's across the street and, it's been approved. So
It has.
my thing is, I think it needs to be contingent, as everything is, based on a traffic study. Will the current road conditions be sufficient for the added number of units that are going to be going in?
Okay.
To me, that's the only thing I see that would hold it up, because you're talking about the different developer owning the commercial side and the one that's wanting to do this. It's 2 different owners.
Right, but at the same time, we are a recommending board.
Yeah.
We're putting forward a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. That's our only job. So we essentially either recommend to approve with stipulations or recommend to deny. And Mr. Mahoney made a motion to deny, and nobody seconded. So I'm hoping there's a motion in one way or another. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval with the stipulation that there is some, however it needs to be worded, that we have some communication on the commercial, that we can see it as a mixed use development.
If I may, the application is just for residential multifamily. So there's no commercial involvement in this application presented. Now, the applicant has spoken to leaving those remaining area as commercial. But if you want to, we can't really stipulate anything about the commercial. I would state that your recommendation would be better as a denial, and to want to see this come back as a CPCD, which is a comprehensive plan community development. So you can see the commercial and see the roadways and how they all connect. And see the intersection developed as a whole as opposed to just the residential multifamily.
Or the
I think
third-
that's what
Or the third option is to table until that time and give some direction to the applicant that would like to see it presented this way, perhaps.
Perhaps.
So if it was changed, if they did agree to want to include the commercial in the design, would it have to start over anyway?
Yeah, so we'd like to see it to start over as a new application to start from the beginning, yes.
Okay.
It would make it a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Because we'd still have to have both public hearings, both at the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners, and advertise as well.
Well, I'll withdraw that motion and make a motion to recommend denial.
A motion to deny, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moving in second, all in favor of denial? Motion is carried 3-0 with one abstention. Recommendation to the Board of Commissioners is to deny. This will go forward to the Board of Commissioners on December the 17th. Presentation of VR 20-22, Jim King, OBO Piedmont Residential, is requesting to vary from the Dawson County Land Use Resolution, Article 3, Section 308C83, or B. Landscape and open space requirements, a buffer of at least 10 feet in width shall be provided and maintained around the entire exterior perimeter of the development. Dawson Forest Road. Someone here to speak for Jim King or Piedmont Residential. If you would please come forward. Since your name and address is already on there and we know that you're Jim King, would you please present us as to your desire for a variance?
Yes, sir. This was, the variance was for a buffer, which we initially thought there was a buffer requirement around the perimeter of the project, but as we read the ordinance since then, delve into it a little bit more, it said that the buffer was only required around, I think it's 8 multifamily, basically around apartments, but it left semi-detached out of it. So it's not, we don't think it's actually required around the semi-detached. The reason for the buffer reduction was to allow for the alleys. We were going to allow some of the apartments that back up to the commercial to access there'd be an alleyway that serves both the commercial and the homes.
So at this time, would you like to withdraw your request or would you rather us go forward and vote on a variance?
I'd like to withdraw it.
There's a request to withdraw. Is there a motion to withdraw this?
Motion to withdraw the variance request.
Accept withdrawal, I guess.
Accept withdrawal.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moving second. All in favor? Thank you, Mr. King. Motion is carried. This one is withdrawn. 5%. Item number K is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.